Welcome back to the Move podcast. We got a lot to cover today. Boy, do we have a lot to cover. I'm JB Hager, but more importantly, I'm joined by Johan Bernil and Spencer Martin. And when I say we have a lot to cover, we're talking about Tirreno-Adriatico and Paris-Nice, both going on at the same time. A lot to keep straight in your head. So whether you saw it or not, we're lucky to have Johan and Spencer to make some sense of all this. And more importantly, I think it's just such a precursor to the rest of the season, what to look ahead for, what people's form is like, and all of that. Before we get to that, just a quick message with Lance from a couple of our sponsors and some special offers.
HVMN and other great partners of ours. The Ketone IQ, this has been around. The idea of ketones has been around for a while. This brand actually came along and perfected it, right? They made it more cost effective, more effective for all performances, whether it's physical or mental, and taste better, right? I think early days, it was almost undrinkable. They've got it to a place where, it's not a bad thing, right? And as we've also touched on many times, like it is so prevalent in the peloton. I think last we heard upwards of 60% of the peloton is using Ketone IQ. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but this was this fighter that they had the big fight in Saudi Arabia the other day, Jake Paul.
Oh yeah,
big fight. He's Jake Paul, super involved with HVMN. You see that dude? I know he lost the fight, but that dude's ripped.
Yeah,
he's ripped. But anyways, the cool thing, I touched on the mental part. So the fuel, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, right? Which is not an easy thing to do. But with that, you get this mental clarity, mental focus that I think is a real game changer. Head on over to hvmn.com. Use the promo code THEMOVE. That gets you 20% off. Again, that's hvmn.com. Promo code THEMOVE. All one word. Today also brought to you by Juve. This is something that I've incorporated into my daily routine. I spend about 30 minutes a day, believe it or not, when I'm at home. I do have my portable travel version, but the 6 panel that I have here at home is a game changer. You've probably seen some of that on the socials. Infrared light, it is proven to boost recovery, help performance, mental clarity, all of these things, all the way down to the cellular level. And again, that's Joovv, Joovv. They do have several different size options. You can head on over to their website and check those out. And the other thing about it is the friends that have tried it out have just loved it. It's a wild experience. So head on over to Joovv, again, joovv.com/TheMove, and apply my code THEMOVE, that's all one word, at joovv.com/TheMove.
All right, guys, let's jump right into Tirreno-Adriatico first. Just again, for me personally, watching both every day, all week, I couldn't keep straight in my head. And then I would go, oh yeah, that's the one that Pogačar is crushing. And that's the one that Roglic is crushing. So we'll start with Tirreno. Some of your big takeaways of what you saw. We won't go through stage by stage for the sake of time. That would just we'd be on here for 3 hours. But let's start with Tirreno with some of our big takeaways, probably starting with the sprinters first.
Yeah, should we say that Primoz Roglic won Tirreno, his countryman Tadej Pogačar won Paris-Nice, inverted from what they did last year. This is like becoming a tradition, Slovenians dominating these spring stage races, and both riders won pretty much every hilly stage that was available to them. So yeah, and the sprints were more competitive than that. We had Fabio Jakobsen went stage 2. There was a time trial in stage 1. Filippo Ganna absolutely crushed it. We'll go back and maybe poll. There's some interesting time gaps in there we can talk about later for the GC. Fabio Jakobsen won stage 2. Jasper Philipsen won stage 3 with a great lead out for Mathieu van der Poel, and finally got that win for Alpecin-Deceuninck, I think is their name this year. Alpecin-Deceuninck. It's too many switching
don't
sponsors.
Get confused. I mean, the sponsors in cycling in Belgium are, it's like a music chairs, like
I know.
It's going to take me 2 seasons to say Quick-Step Soudal, right?
Well, no, it's Soudal Quick-Step.
Oh. I still say Mape Quick-Step, so I don't know any better.
And then Philipsen won. Roglic won 3 consecutive hilly stages. We'll break down important points from that. And then Philipsen won the final sprint stage, stage 7. Johan, I was thinking about you through all these sprint stages. Do you think Alpecin's back on track now? They get 2 pretty impressive sprint stages over Soudal Quickstep. Jakobsen's top tier sprinter. So I'd say these are really, really quality wins for Philipsen.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I mean the sprints that Philipsen won 2 times with an amazing lead out from Mathieu van der Poel, especially the first sprint. You know, all the best sprinters were basically there. You know, I mean, at least Jakobsen was there, Groenewegen was there, other sprinters were there. Are they back on track? I would say no. I think it's obviously great for them to, you know, get the pressure off. They were the only team of the World Tour who didn't have a victory yet, or even a podium place yet in the season. So that's obviously a big relief. And for Philipsen, it's great to have these 2 sprints and with such a competitive field. But I cannot help myself to see that Alpecin, as a team, as a whole, they are a little off compared to other seasons. It's clear that, you know, the season is dominated, like the big races are dominated by 2 or 3 teams, and Alpecin is not one of them, but they're also not in close contact with that first train of leading teams. So, you know, who knows, you know, things can change quickly in cycling, and, you know, in a few weeks they may win a monument and everything is forgotten. But yeah, I mean, I think personally, Philipsen is, you know, every year making the steps, and he is, you know, getting up to a point where he can be considered, if you ask the question, who is the best or fastest sprinter in the whole pro peloton right now, he can be considered as one of them. You know, you can bring him up as, okay, you know, this guy definitely is up there. He beat all the fast guys already. You know, he won 2 stages in the Tour last year. You know, I think he's also getting more complete as a rider overall. So that's great to see. I think it was great to see also to see, you know, a guy like Mathieu van der Poel, who knew that his form was not optimal yet. And, you know, this is a pure leader who is used to have the whole team always at his service. To see him so dedicated, 100% killing himself to lead out Jasper Philipsen, and then, you know, doing an amazing job, and especially seeing the joy afterwards of Mathieu van der Poel, who is used to win since he's 12 years old, and still seeing that joy of, you know, okay, we did it, you know, the plan worked, and we won this race. So that was nice to see.
Watching him lead out, it was like, it's almost like he could gap everybody. Mm-hmm. Like, he's out of the saddle leading out. Mm-hmm. Incredibly powerful. And then would you still consider them a bit of, an underdog team?
No.
No.
Listen, already the 2 last years when they were not World Tour, they were considered World Tour. They were considered one of the best, of the top teams. They were always 6th or 7th in the team ranking, not being World Tour. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's, they have a slower start, but, you know, maybe it's also on purpose. Who knows? You know, it's a very long season, and you know, now at the beginning, everybody's full of energy, everybody's full of motivation. They all want to race, but these races are very hard to win. So they may say, okay, we'll be there, but let's just take a back seat a little bit, and then when all the energy, like the tension is out of the balloon, let's say, then we come in and then we put the pressure on. It's possible. I mean, you know, we're not gonna judge them on 2 months of racing.
Yeah, the lead outs looked amazing, and Van der Poel's getting very good at leading out Philipsen. That's like a potent combo. We'll probably see at the Tour. Are you at all concerned about, like, Van Aert looked good? You know, he kind of sat up that first day. After that, he looked incredibly strong. You know, like, he's clearly building. Van der Poel, he was not impressive at Strade Bianche. He was not, I would say, when it got hard, especially on hills, he really struggled here. Same thing with Tom Pidcock, who looked good last weekend. Like, are we concerned about those two as we get into more serious spring races?
I think for Flanders and Roubaix, this has no impact. These guys are going to be ready. Both of them knew and said on beforehand that they knew that they were not 100%. So personally, I've seen Van Aert. First of all, it's also the mindset with which they come into this race. I think both of them came into the race knowing, okay, we're not 100%. We're going to take it day by day and see how we improve. We're not going to go over our limits. We've seen that with Van Aert. We've seen that with Van der Poel. Then Van der Poel did those two amazing lead-outs. You have to be really good to do that. And then we saw this incredible performance, in my opinion, from Wout van Aert on stage 6, where, he had been working, pulling, basically destroying the whole field, pissing off a guy like Alaphilippe, who was, not pissing off, but he was actually really upset because he was suffering so much while Van Aert was pulling. And then if you see that Van Aert still finishes top 10 in that stage, to me, that's a sign that this guy knows what he's doing and he's building up. And, as for now, I would say if you look at their next goal, which is Milan-San Remo next week, I would say Van Aert has probably a little bit better form than Van der Poel for that race. But there's no doubt in my mind that they're both going to be up there and that they're going to be, going for the win. And then, we'll have to see, what Pogacar is going to do. He's coming out of Paris-Nice. He also makes it a goal. Milan-San Remo, it's completely, these guys are rewriting the books, they're rewriting the scenario of cycling, a guy who has won the Tour, who will go for the Tour later on, like Pogacar, making Milan-San Remo a goal, making Tour of Flanders a goal. That's unseen.
That's what's pissing people off.
Well, the fans love it, and I think it's great to see. It's great to see. I maintain that it's a risk, but we can talk about that later when we talk about Paris-Nice.
But I think it speaks to the current culture in cycling. You've been saying this for a while. Like, they're racing. Like, they are full gas racing, where in the past it may have been more of a tune-up, get fit, more laid back, more casual at a race like both of these that were this past week. But now it's like they want the win.
For example, if you look at the programs of these guys, right? So let's say we have Primoz Roglic, yeah. So he does this race. He added it last minute. So he does Tirreno, he does Tour of Catalonia, and the Giro. That's it. No other races. So every time he races, he's going to go for the win. Pogacar does Andalusia, he wins it. He does Paris-Nice. Now he's not racing anymore any stage races. It's going to be, some races in Belgium, like 2 or 3 races, and then Tour of Flanders, and then probably Liège-Bastogne-Liège, finished. And then Tour of Slovenia and Tour de France. So every time they race, they're going to go for the win. Vingegaard is the same thing. Does Paris-Nice. Now he's going to do Tour of the Basque Country. Then Dauphiné, Tour de France. That's it. No other races. So every time he's going to race, they're going for the win. So they do race very aggressively, but on the other hand, they compensate it with time off and with training camps. So you can understand that whenever they race, they go for the win. I understand that.
On stage 6, you were mentioning Wout van Aert looked unbelievable, going so strong. I thought at times so strong he was dropping his own team. Like, he dropped Tadej Pogačar. Tadej Pogačar had to chase back on. Wilco Kelderman crashed. So they went from having a pretty dominant position to having Van Aert shredding everyone and Roglic hanging on. It ended up working out, but Alexander Vlasov did get away in a pretty dangerous move. UAE, there was an odd situation at the end of stage 5. There's 16 riders within 1 minute of the GC. Multiple teams had 3 riders in that tranche of 16. a lot of people thought, oh, this is going to make the racing more exciting. I actually thought it made the racing less exciting, because what happened is UAE, for some reason, doesn't get a rider in that Vlasov move and then starts to work. They start to pull back the move for Roglic. Ineos gets on the front, I guess, to work for Theo Gegenhardt's third place. They bail out Jumbo. They're even setting pace at the bottom of the short climb. We've all seen this movie before. Roglic kind of double clutches, gets Moss in front of him, and then it's like easy. It looked like he was.
It's not easy, Spencer.
He made it look easy. He didn't even get out of the saddle, and it was like, oh, thank you everyone for coming to my win. This was so nice of you to attend. What is going on?
That's the way it looks. Yeah.
What is going on at UAE? I thought that was so bizarre.
I think it's very clear what's going on. Well, first of all, they had Almeida going for second. I think they knew that was their best possible shot. Although, when Roglic was isolated, they could have played it differently. But I personally think that from the beginning of the season, UAE, I don't know if this is a promise they made to the Sheikh, but there is no doubt that they want to be team number one. Whenever they race, they want to win or score points. And their goal is to be the best team in the world, number one. And so when you can't win, then you go for second place. So Almeida's position was in danger, and luckily Jumbo-Visma could profit from that. But I personally think that's the main reason, that they want to be the best team in the world, and every situation that compromises that, they try to correct it.
Yeah. And the lesson is, when everyone's freaking out on Twitter saying, oh, the tomorrow stage is going to be nuts because there's all these potential riders who could take the lead, it almost is the opposite effect, where riders within the team don't want to sacrifice. Like Adam Yates doesn't want to set a precedent where he's subservient to Almeida, because he probably wants to lead the team later in the year. So it's like everyone is just looking for their team to work for them, but because their teammates are high up in the GC, their teammates don't want to work for them. It's an odd paradox.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, Spencer, people who have their opinion on Twitter, that's, there's a lot of those. And
Twitter's always right. Yeah.
Most of them have never ridden a bike. So that's, but yeah, I mean, I thought for a moment that it could be very dangerous for Jumbo-Visma in stage 6 with that move of Vlasov. And it's, they were obviously counting that Kelderman would stay in there. They were always counting with him. So, unluckily he crashed, but those are things you have to foresee, when you're defending. And that's why I always say you need to think ahead and be conservative and have a few bullets left in case, what if the guy you're counting on to correct the situation with 10K to go, all of a sudden has a flat. I mean, those things happen. And before the guy's back with a new bike, you've lost another 45 seconds. Right. So that's why I think it was risky, but the circumstances of the stage turned into their favor. And, I have to say, hats off to Primoz Roglic, because I am sure that he didn't come into this race with the ambition to win. He was an addition last moment. We've all seen the pictures, unshaven legs, which is, in today's cycling, which is, it's, I only can imagine the jokes that have been made in the peloton about, the hairs on his legs.
Didn't he have a deal with himself? He wasn't going to shave it until he got a win. I
don't know. I mean, now he's going to have to shave them now. But yeah, I mean, I think, his result in the first time trial showed that A, he didn't come in with super high ambitions, and B, that he is not in his top shape yet. But yet he got into the race and saw opportunities and got the race circumstances also a bit to his favor. But I love Primoz Roglic. He's amazing. To be able to win 3 stages and the GC and 3 jerseys in a prestigious stage race like Tirreno with, really tough competition, like Enric Mas, Adam Yates, Mikel Landa, Almeida. I'm convinced he was not really the strongest rider of the race. But he has this quality of, being able to wait, being patient. I've baptized him the silent assassin.
I know what you're talking about. He is incredibly patient.
But also he had the circumstances to his favor. Let's say the hardest stage, which was this long climb. First of all, the weather conditions eliminated the last 2.5 kilometers of that climb. And on top of that, it was really headwind. So if you really analyze those 10-kilometer climb, you can see that Roglic is not comfortable. He is hiding. He is 15, 20 positions back always. But listen, if you come with Primoz Roglic to the last 500-700 meters on an uphill finish, forget about it.
They dropped him and they sat up. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Sat up. It was a big headwind also. I think Enric Mas did, in my opinion, the strongest rider in Tirreno. And although the result may not reflect that, the strongest rider uphill was Enric Mas, from what I've seen. And I think we're going to see a different Enric Mas this season after his second place last year in the Vuelta. But anyway, that's for later talks, later down the season. But Roglic was not the best rider, but he knew how to, take advantage of those stages. And it's easy to say he was not the best rider. He had to be there, right? it's Almeida and Theo Gegenhardt are going to say, hey, we were suffering like dogs, and Roglic was there and he passed us, so he was the best. But
if I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, both you guys, but if he's the silent assassin because he is patient, he's waiting, and then boom, he appears. Who comes to mind as someone's that's the opposite? They go full gas too early. They blow up before the last few hundred meters. Who makes that mistake? Does anyone come to mind?
Julian Alaphilippe. That's for me.
Julian Alaphilippe has a style, already he has a style. He moves a lot. He's looking around. Then he has his team pulling for him. He's making all kinds of movements. So basically, you know what's going to happen. He kind of says, okay, I'm going to attack. And then before he attacks, he says, hey guys, I'm going to attack. So yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I think Julian Alaphilippe, he's okay. He's doing well, but he's not the Alaphilippe we've seen in 2019 or 2020. But yeah, hats off to Roglic. Amazing what this guy, and in this comeback also, after his big crash in the Tour last year, injured vertebrae, then big crash in the Vuelta, had to quit and then comes back this way. This is not the first time we've seen this from Roglic, coming back at the highest level after a long period of, recovering from injury. I think that's what makes him one of my favorite riders.
Yeah, I can't recall if we acknowledged that he had 3 stage wins, but I don't think we've said it yet that they were 3 in a row, which is pretty remarkable. And you think you'd be so gassed that you just wouldn't be able to do it the next day and the next day. That's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So Johan, Adam Yates finishes 11th, a minute and 15
That's a
minutes
disappointment.
back.
That to me was a big disappointment.
Adam, he was dropping Remco Evenepoel not that long ago at the UAE Tour. Can we pull anything from this about the Giro d'Italia? No. In my opinion, no. These races are, first of all, there's still Tour of Catalonia in between now and the Giro, right? Where we're going to see a head-to-head between Remco and Primoz, which are, the 2 big favorites for the Giro. So there we're going to see what that's really worth. Adam Yates was really strong in the uphill finishes in Tour of UAE, but it's, a lot can change in 2 or 3 weeks in cycling. The level obviously of Tirreno is a lot higher than the Tour of UAE. So whether Adam Yates has stayed at the same level of UAE
or if he's worse, we don't know that, right? We don't know that. The competition was definitely a lot tougher, and I mean, I'm sure if you talk to the riders, the pace of these races of Paris-Nice and Tirreno compared to Ruta del Sol or this race in Galicia or Tour of UAE or whatever, it's not comparable. I personally, I think, Adam Yates will also be disappointed. He didn't do a great time trial. So there already he was a bit off, but Roglic didn't do a great time trial either. He took all the uphill finish stages plus the bonifications. So at the end, Roglic is a master in winning races with bonifications.
Do you get a sense, and I think I'm probably wrong on this, but I couldn't help but think it. Do you think Roglic was trying to send a message that he can still be the team leader in any GC for Jumbo? Meaning, hey, Vingegaard's maybe not the guy. And it's hard to tell when they're in different races. But I was wondering if he was trying to send a message like, I'm still the guy.
It's early to say. And also, in Jumbo-Visma, they've made a decision already. Roglic goes for the Giro, Vingegaard goes for the Tour. And if Roglic would go to the Tour, it would be if he is successful in the Giro, then he may go to the Tour as a helper or, as a luxury helper.
A backup.
Or if for some reason he doesn't finish the Giro, then he may go to the Tour as a co-leader, which, as for now, the way I see Pogacar, that's maybe what Jumbo-Visma needs. Maybe they would need two guys against Pogacar. So I think it's all still up in the air. But normally the plan is that Roglic goes for the Giro, Vingegaard goes for the Tour. I think that's a logical decision. But as anything in cycling, it can change at any time depending on what happens in the races.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is, and I guess we can start jumping ahead to Paris-Nice a little bit, but at the moment, Vingegaard is not on the level of Pogacar. Like it's just he's on a whole different level.
But JB, you know what? I mean, I wrote it down here. Look back to last year. They didn't do Paris-Nice. They both did Tirreno. Pogacar won Tirreno. Nobody came close to him. Vingegaard had no chance at all to beat Pogacar. So, what does it mean, this domination of Pogacar now for July? In my opinion, it's a mental advantage. It's, this is, okay. I personally think Pogacar got a wake-up call last year in the Tour, and it's clear that he prepared for this season. Like, okay, I need to be there. I'm on a higher level, and I'm here. Don't forget about me, right? And I think that's the biggest takeaway. But for July, it doesn't mean anything, in my opinion. Vingegaard last year was far away from Pogacar, same as now in Paris-Nice. There was one, that's actually funny. There was one, I don't know if you remember that, Spencer. There was one stage, because Vingegaard last year finished second in Tirreno behind Pogacar. And there was one stage where the guy says, now you're closer to the blue jersey. And Vingegaard, it was a cold day. I think it was the uphill finish. It was a cold day, also rain. And Vingegaard said, the blue jersey? Which one is that?
Well, I don't think Vingegaard's ever beaten Pogacar in a stage race outside the Tour.
Probably not.
That one great day. That's all it takes, right?
Yeah. And so if you're Vingegaard, you're probably thinking, well, okay, this is nice. Yeah. But you always beat me in these stage races.
They're not panicking at all. Then we would also have to ask ourselves the question, which is maybe also what they're doing. They're asking themselves the question, okay, did we win the Tour de France because Pogacar was on a lower level than the year before? Or is Pogacar now back at his best level, which is not the one from last year, and we are at the same level? So how can we get back to that level? But since from now on till the Tour, they're going two different ways. We will not know until July where both of them are. And then, who knows? Maybe a third guy shows up. Who knows? Maybe Primoz Roglic.
Right.
If I have my way, it's going to be Filippo Ganna. I'm predicting every race. I think this guy is going to finally be a stage racer, and he never does.
No, he's not. He's not going to, because Spencer, I think the main reason is because he's not interested in it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the way he could go for 1 week stage races, but I think he thinks to himself, the competition is so big, so hard, the level's so high, and the sacrifices he needs to make compared to the risk of will this work or not, it's not worth it. Wout van Aert, in my opinion, is in the same situation. They have their specialties and they're the best in the world at that. So why would they gamble with the risk of not obtaining anything? Because they need to find out, right? And how good they will be.
And time trials have gotten historically shorter, which doesn't work well for Ganna.
Yeah.
Ganna, just shout out to Ganna. He did that opening time trial 2 kilometers an hour faster than the second place rider, Leonard Kamna. That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I would love to have access to that power file. He must have been over 500 watts the whole time.
It's like this 500.
Yeah. I've seen fast TTs. TTs are getting faster, but just the delta between first and second was unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, you could expect that from a guy like Ganna. By the way, shout out to Magnus Sheffield for that time trial. That was a great ride. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Paris-Nice now, but we have another American we have to talk about in Paris-Nice who did a great ride and who I'm liking more and more, Matteo Jorgensen.
Mm.
And that's Sheffield's second great time trial so far this year. I think he got second in the prologue at Tour Down Under in similar conditions.
Yes. Yeah.
Really good rider.
Yeah. So anyway, shifting to Paris-Nice, I think there, we all knew that it was going to be the first big confrontation. Everybody was curious, what are these victories in Ruta del Sol and in Galicia worth compared to this? And there we saw, Pogačar, the first time it was uphill, he won that dominantly. Dominantly, not towards David Gaudu, who was actually, until the last stage, a very close contender. But it was clear that Pogačar was no match for. There was nobody who could come close when he really wanted. And Vingegaard, I think that first loss of 45 seconds must have been a huge blow to his morale also. And then from then on, he knew he really had to manage his efforts, and he knew that being on the podium would be the best possible result, and which is what he did.
And just to even go back further than that, stage 1, stage 2 sprint stages, Pogačar took 6 seconds each stage, I believe.
12 seconds,
Yeah, which is right there. You're thinking, well, this is going to be tough for Jonas. Stage 3 was this kind of interesting team time trial where they took the time of the first rider. I thought it worked a lot better. I don't think Jumbo knew the rules. I was confused by what Jumbo was doing.
They knew the
rules. They brought 3 guys to the line, went slower than they would have liked. UAE launched, it looked like a sprint finish. Like they launched Pogačar so fast inside that final kilometer. I think he finished as like 16 seconds back, something like that. It looked, if you're just looking at the results, you'd say, wow, he got crushed. But then he only has to make up, let's say, 6 to 8 seconds on Vingegaard.
Yeah, no, I think they were down. I think they were 30 seconds down, and it was like 28 seconds, and he had to make up 16 seconds.
Oh yeah, you're right, because he was 23 seconds back in the stage.
Yeah.
So 23 minus 12, and then he had to make that
11.
up.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, this is going to be a nickel and dime stage race. I'm excited to watch it. And then no, stage, what was that? Stage 4 rolls around.
Yeah.
And he just takes 45 seconds from Vingegaard right there.
Basically, I think that's the most interesting stage actually to go into detail, Spencer, because they themselves, they didn't really know where they were either. And we saw this, this early attack from Vingegaard with over 4K to go, which was a bit weird to me because, if you're in a position, okay, he didn't have the yellow jersey, but he was on the road. He was the leader of those two, of Vingegaard and Pogačar. So in this case, that Pogačar has to attack to get time back. So Vingegaard went far out, basically, wanting to test how strong Pogačar really was. And he got a huge surprise seeing that Pogačar was really strong because he paid for it. He attacked, and at the end, he paid the price by losing 45 seconds, which, in a normal scenario, you would say, okay, I wait. The guy who's behind me has to make time up on me, so I'll follow him when he attacks. And then if I see some kind of, weakness, then I'll take advantage of it and counterattack. He did the opposite, not knowing really what the strength of both was. And he found out that day that Pogačar was a lot stronger.
Yeah. I thought that was an odd attack as well. I didn't quite understand it. I mean, his DS Martin Zeeman, sometimes Jumbo says stuff and I wonder why they're saying it. I think he said maybe yesterday that Vingegaard is not in good shape because he left the team to deal with the personal issue, but maybe just don't say that. Just say, "Oh yeah, we hope."
No, that's not the case because that was before the race in Galicia.
I couldn't quite figure out the timeline there. Yeah.
It was just before the race in Galicia. He went quick out and back, and it was even within Spain because apparently his family has a residence in Andalusia, actually in the south of Spain. So he went quickly there. I don't know what the issue was, but he came back and he won 3 stages. He won all 3 stages of the race.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
So, listen, Vingegaard he's on a good level. He's not on his best level, and there's no reason to panic. But I think particularly that stage, that first mountain stage, was interesting because you can see that they don't really know themselves, right? In between each other, who's the strongest guy. But going off of what Pogačar did, going for those bonifications, 2 days taking 6 seconds, that already tells you that this guy will take every opportunity to gain time. And since you have gained time 20 something seconds in the team time trial, then let him make the effort to try to get that time back. Follow him if you can. And if you see some kind of problem with him, then counterattack, which he didn't do because he didn't have the legs anymore.
And tell me if I'm reaching here. I'm just trying to figure out some sort of way that Pogačar doesn't win every race this season. But so he attacks Vingegaard. David Gaudu goes with him. Great ride. I mean, great ride from him all week long. I was really impressed. Kind of just sits on his wheel. Pogačar pulls him to the line and then rides him off his wheel. Looked fantastic. Like, wow, this guy's amazing. Like, is that smart though? Like, what if Vingegaard was in better shape? Had been like, if Gaudu's there, Vingegaard can be there in top form. Is this the same type of behavior that kind of dug the hole for him at the Tour last year, where he kept just pulling Jonas to the line and sprinting maybe when he didn't need to sprint, wasting little bits of energy here and there? Like, has he learned his lesson, or is he still kind of just when in doubt, go fast?
I think it's obviously a guy who wants to win. I've heard somewhere that I read in an interview actually that his big goal this year is win the Tour of Flanders. He would prefer to win the Tour of Flanders than the Tour de France.
Wow.
So it's obviously a guy who wants to win races, and the earlier in his career, the better, right? To come back to your question, Spencer, if Vingegaard would have been there together with Gaudu, he would not have pulled that much. Because, I think with all due respect for Gaudu, but he does not see Gaudu the same kind of rival than Vingegaard. I mean, he was pulling because he wanted to take as much possible time on Vingegaard. If there would have been 3 guys, it would have been a lot more tactical. There would have been attacks, but he would not have been pulling with Gaudu and with Vingegaard on the wheel.
Yeah.
On the heels of what you're saying, Spencer, I couldn't help but wonder that as well with Pogačar. Just the politics of racing, which you guys often talk about within the peloton. And once he has a lead, you think he would just mark the wheel and just follow him to the line. But it's in his blood to just take the win if he can. But you sometimes wonder the politics of racing. It's like, all right, I'm going to win this whole stage race. I don't need to take every win, but he does. What are your thoughts on that? Like in the long run?
Well, it's funny you mentioned
you don't
this.
make friends that way.
Did you see this on stage 8, Johan, where they were yelling at him? That was a little strange.
David de la Cruz. But then afterwards, that was funny. There was some kind of, criticism on Twitter, and surprisingly, Pogačar himself tuned in on that.
I didn't see this moment.
So it was basically on the last stage, where, okay, he has a lead. He won those 2 stages. There's a breakaway. There's nobody in there who's dangerous for GC. I think the best guy was 3 minutes or something down. So, normally you would think, okay, I'm in the lead. This works for a 1-week stage race and for a 3-week stage race. I'm in a lead. This guy is there in 3 minutes. So we don't have to worry in the first place. It's the guy who's in second and third who have to worry if they don't want to lose their position. They will have to come and ride. So, and in that case, we can join forces, but they did not. They just went with UAE team to the front, and they, even if that breakaway had a guy in there who was 3 minutes down, they just kept it under a minute and really rode to win the stage. Obviously, I'm going to be, categorized as an old school, old fashioned, old thinking DS, but that would never be on my books, that kind of racing, because you have to think ahead. And, if you want 2 stages and you have yellow, there's a breakaway. Whenever you have the race lead, you need to think about keeping your team together and slow the race down. And whenever you have a situation which is advantage for you in front, with a breakaway with a guy in the break, which is not a threat for you, but a threat for the others, use that situation. They do not care. They do not care. They just ride. And then I come back to my theory. They race so little, so few times that anytime they race, they want to win. But the situation of the last stage in Paris-Nice, obviously, we've seen an amazing stage and an incredible demonstration of Pogačar on the last climb, which I think was the biggest statement of the whole of these 2 weeks of racing. That, he won those other 2 stages, a little bit of tactics, winning the stage, getting the bonification, but this was like a full-on attack. And okay, see you in the douches, it was unbelievable on the Col d'Azur. It goes against your normal managing of a leader's jersey, but that's not the case anymore. These guys race differently, and they can pull it off. So listen, I applaud them for racing that way. I wouldn't have done it that way, and I hope it doesn't come with a very, very expensive bill later on in the season. But for the moment, I think we're all enjoying this aggressive, volatile racing of a guy champion like Pogačar.
And JB, when they caught the breakaway, David de la Cruz from the breakaway was yelling at them like, "What are you doing? This doesn't make any sense." He kind of has a point. Johan, if I told you he had a 12-second lead over David Gaudu going into that stage, don't you just want the bonus seconds gone? Let the breakaway go and chew up those bonus seconds.
Absolutely.
You're one drop chain away from David Gaudu winning that stage and you losing the GC.
You never know. Listen, if you have a mechanical, or if you in that last downhill you miss a turn, you get back on and it's 100 meters and you cannot close the gap, then the bonifications are going to come into place. And so, they're not thinking about that. They just go full gas and I'm going to destroy the field here and I'm going to win. And that's what he did. That climb on Col d'Azur was incredible. If you look at the time, he sat That's amazing, and that to me is the biggest takeaway of these two stage races, is that Pogačar got to a level which is at least as good as his best yet, if not better, which is scary for his competition.
I want to ask you guys, how good is Gaudu? Could we see him on the podium? I see he has Tour de France on his schedule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Gaudu is a big talent, right? He won, I think he won the Tour de l'Avenir, if I'm not mistaken, in 2017 or 18.
2016. I just happen to have it in front of me.
Okay.
There's no way I would know that.
If you look at who was there, Jay Hindley was there, Egan Bernal was there. There's another guy, I forgot, but another good rider. Don't know if it's not Vlasov or somebody of that kind. So Gaudu is a huge talent.
Yeah, Hindley was there. Theo Gegenhardt. Wow.
Yeah. So, he's been maturing a little bit slower, but obviously he's at a level now where, he's the only guy who could follow Pogačar in 2 of the 3 mountaintop finishes. That's something. And obviously, I think he was 5th in the Tour last year, if I'm not mistaken. Fourth.
Yeah. Wow.
So
right?
This Tour de France doesn't have a lot of time trials, which is definitely really good for him. At the same time, I have to say he's there, but whenever it's really like those two, Vingegaard and Pogačar, at the full of their potential, he's not there. He's like 3rd or 4th or 5th, right? But tactically, he could take advantage. Like on the first uphill stage, there was first this battle between Vingegaard and Pogačar on the lower slopes. Then they got caught, and then he anticipated and attacked. But then when Pogačar came from the back, he could stay with him. So that says a lot about his quality. So definitely he's a candidate for the podium. And especially in this year's Tour, as I said, with so little time trial kilometers. And also Groupama Française de Jeu, they have improved a lot as a team. They have a very solid team.
One of the other things I jotted down that we've got to give Johan credit where it's due, picking these up and comers. Olav Kuj. Koy. Getting a win on stage 5. That's one of your up and comer names that you just shared with us recently.
Well, yeah, it is, JB, but I'm not going to take too much credit for it because last year he already won 10 races.
Right.
In his first year professional. But this is different. This is Paris-Nice, and this is where the big sprinters are, beating Mats Pedersen and Tim Merlier. I really like that guy. Then at the same time, you have to think, okay, a rider like this on a team like Jumbo-Visma, is that really the place where he wants to remain? Because at some point they're going to want to go to the Tour. And if you even in 2 years, if Olaf Koy all of a sudden becomes the best sprinter, there is no place for him in the Tour de France team at Jumbo-Visma.
Probably not in the Vuelta. It seems hard. If you imagine him trying to go to a Grand Tour, it actually seems difficult to fit him in any of those 3 because they want to win the GC probably at this Euro Tour and the Vuelta this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in the Vuelta he should be there, but yeah, normally teams for the Vuelta, it's normally you plan for the Giro and for the Tour, and then in the last third of the season you look what you have left, and who's still motivated, who's not injured, who's not tired. So if he wants to go to the Vuelta, I think he'll be there.
And what happened with Dylan Groenewegen? It was the same situation. He was a great sprinter on Jumbo. Did they sell him to Bike Exchange or just release him from his contract?
They released him. They released him for that reason, because Groenewegen was, wanted to go to the Tour, and there was no place for him. So he went to back then it was called Bike Exchange. Now it's called Jayco Alula. Yeah, he won a stage in the Tour de France. So obviously made the good choice. But there, it's the same thing, Spencer. The competition that's coming is so big, also amongst the sprinters, If you look, Groenewegen, he's obviously one of the best, fastest sprinters, but they're not dominating the sprints. They can win once in a while when, at a certain point, they have a great lead out and all of a sudden the road opens up and they can go for it the last 100 meters, but there's no guarantees that these guys are going to win a lot of races.
It's not like the days of the dominant sprint team with the perfect lead out, the pointy arrow. It's wider now. It's the whole road.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And multiple lead outs happening at the same time.
Yeah. Like, for example, if you look at Groenewegen, for example, in Tirreno, on the last stage, he had the ideal situation. He was glued to the wheel of Philipsen. And there you also see how strong Philipsen has gotten, because Philipsen of last year or 2 years ago, Groenewegen always wins that sprint. He was like glued on, and he couldn't even come next to him. He was just stay where he was, So also there, the speeds are getting higher, and at some point, you can be there for 2-3 years at the top, and then there's other guys coming already.
One of the things we haven't talked about was the crazy high winds. It's a stage canceled in Paris-Nice for those who didn't see all of that. And you could see it in Tirreno too. Like, I was just watching them on some uphill climbs and you could just see the leaves blowing down. Like, how mentally defeated were most of these guys riding in those kind of high winds? And is that normal for this time of year?
The cancellation of the stage in Paris-Nice, I think, was really, really justified, because there was winds up till 130 kilometers per hour, and trees were, falling on the road. So there was no way of guaranteeing the safety, not just of the riders, but the cars, the whole caravan. I think it was way too risky. So I think they made a good decision. And then in Tirreno, they canceled the last 2 kilometers of that climb, and the wind there was also incredible. It's different parts. I'm here in Madrid and we're fine, 20 degrees, sunny, and no worries.
And another kind of a rookie question here too. Do they, in these 1 week stage races, do they have time cutoffs like they do in the Grand Tours?
Yeah.
They do. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered, in that bad weather, some guys just shut down,
Well, sometimes they make exceptions. If it's really bad conditions, they can say, okay, you know what? Whoever finished, that's up to the commissaires to decide. But yeah, there's always a percentage time cut depending on the difficulty of the stage.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I do think that wind, Primoz Roglic, great champion, great rider, but that helped him a lot. So if you're talking about, did it demoralize some people? It definitely set up the right situation for Roglic, because he was a little off the pace in that time trial and maybe would have got dropped by Enric Mas on the stage 5 summit finish had there been no wind or a tailwind. But those headwind climbs really kept the group compact and then let him just smoke people in the sprint.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. And, I am 100% convinced that Roglic was not in top shape. He's in good shape. Otherwise, he would not have decided to start. But you still have to be there in the last kilometer, right?
Yeah.
To be able to use your skill of being basically unbeatable when on those kind of finishes. It's amazing. And the way he was waiting also, you saw the sign of 200 meters to go, 150 meters to go. He was still staying calm, didn't even make an intention to move, and just went for it with 80, 70 meters to go, which is crazy.
2 of those wins, stage 4 and 6, were tricky. Those were really tricky uphill. It was not just a straight uphill finish. That kind of cobbled streets where they would start to go downhill. It's hard to win those.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm going to bring this up with the utmost respect, but I didn't even realize Mark Cavendish was racing this week.
That we were,
and it's a story we want to follow. It's a story that everyone cares about. Is anything going on there? Do you have any intel?
I don't have any information. What's clear is that in Tirreno, Cavendish was never in the game to win a sprint. Neither has, his team was not trying to keep him in front. I think first of all, his team is on the limit when it goes. If you look at the classification of teams, they are right now, if they would distribute the World Tour licenses, they're out, but not even close. They're really in the back. Obviously, it's a 3-year classification, so we're not gonna. But they have not gotten any good results. So they don't have a very strong team already. And then to support Cavendish in those stage races, for the moment, it's not happening. So personally, I think Cavendish is not too bothered. I know he has a goal. We'll see him when it matters, I think. But yeah, with these guys up there and getting better and better, and these teams getting more and more trained to bring their sprinter to the front and setting up those huge trains, it's Mark is not getting any younger, and his rivals are younger and younger and getting faster and faster. So he has his work cut out.
Yeah, and some of these lead-out riders are really good. Like, think of Danny Van Poppel. Like, that guy is a really good lead-out rider.
Yeah.
On Bora, Cees Bol is his lead-out rider, is Cavendish's lead-out rider, but he's not really. He was a sprinter until last year, right? And now they're trying to turn him into a lead-out rider on the fly. Mm-hmm. It seems.
Well, I think a guy like, obviously, it's impossible that Astana will be able to have a train to lead out Mark Cavendish. So I think next best option is that Cees Bol is the guy who drops Cavendish off on the wheel of one of his rivals that has a good lead-out train. That's another way of doing it, and he can win that way.
His best result this year, his only podium all year, was stage 1 of the UAE Tour, which was that blown stage. Clearly, he's fit. If he could make it into that echelon, that's hard. And that was the best he's looked, is when he had fewer teammates. It was kind of a more open sprint. That team has a lot of work to do. And as Johan said, even their good riders like Alexei Lutsenko does not look good. So there's some sort of team-wide issue there.
All right. Any other parting thoughts before we wrap up the show? And we do have, before we go, I will share with you a special announcement of something that Johan and George are doing. But any parting thoughts?
No, for me, it was interesting. Now the season has really started. The cycling season has really started. Everything we've seen up till now was kind of, a prologue towards the 2 big stage races, Paris-Nice and Tirreno, traditionally always the first big tests. And we've seen the best riders in the world showing themselves. Some have work to do. Some others are already there. And, it's promising to be an amazing, exciting cycling season with those aggressive champions.
I think this is like a huge win for the Giro. I'm very excited for the Giro d'Italia now to see Evenepoel and Roglic, 2 really, really top class riders going at it. The Giro kind of hasn't had that as much in the past few years. So this made me, I knew Pogačar was going to be good. It was clear that before Paris-Nice that he was in good shape. So Pogačar is going to be awesome to watch at San Remo and Flanders, and I'm excited to see what he can do. But my main takeaway is I'm now on high alert for the Giro d'Italia. I can't wait for it.
All right. And now for just to throw this out there, in case someone listening wants to jump on an unbelievable opportunity, in my opinion, you can join Johan and George Hincapie at Flanders. We have VIP for a handful of slots. You can go out there and ride and enjoy it and take in the race, total VIP experience. You'll get to ride on the course. You know a lot more about this, Johan, so I'll let you elaborate.
And also a big first for the Move, our first podcast on site at a big World Tour cycling event. So we're going to do the podcast from Flanders with a special guest, not to be revealed yet. But so that's a first. So the move keeps being on the move. We're making steps, and now we're going to be at the Tour of Flanders, and then we'll see what's next. But,
and then, of course, I think most of our listeners know that this was what George was amazing at, right? So to go from him and hear the stories that he has, the experience he has, right alongside him, just like
so
crazy.
The plan is that guests who want to join us can contact our company at info@wedo.team. For more details, and they can ride with George the day before the Tour of Flanders, the 140 kilometer section of Tour of Flanders, and then the day of the race we will be at the start, and then we'll go to the VIP zone at the Quaremont, where we will see 3 times the race pass and have lunch and see everything on the big screen. So it will be an amazing experience.
Wow. Again, info@wedo.team if you're interested in that. Guys, thank you very much. I'm trying to think, next on the calendar for all of us is Milan-San Remo.
Yes.
Correct. So there we go. Again, thank you very much, Johan Spencer. Appreciate all of your input on this and watching a lot of racing in the past week and breaking this down for us. Thank you very much. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, guys.